Jai has met the family of one of the killers. 16-year-old Brianna was stabbed to death in a park in Cheshire in February last year by Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe. Esther Jai met Jenkinson's mother last week. She's told the BBC that she felt no hatred and it was important for her to understand what the killer's family had gone through. And Oppenheimer was the big winner of the night at the 96th Oscars, scooping 7 awards, including Best Picture. The film's British director, Christopher Nolan, won his first Academy Award, as did Cillian Murphy, who became the first Irish winner of the Best Actor Oscar. Emma Stone was awarded Best Actress for her role in Poor Things. The Zone of Interest, set in the home of the Commandant of Auschwitz, became the first British production to win Best International Film.
Thank you. 27 minutes to 7 is the time. At closer inspection, it appears that the source has manipulated the image. So says the Associated Press about the photo of the Princess of Wales and the children released by the Palace for Mother's Day. Daniela Ralph is our royal correspondent. What is it exactly that they've honed in on, Daniela?
Well, there are a number of things that they've honed in on the image, but the main thing that the picture agencies seem to have a problem with is the sleeve of Princess Charlotte's cardigan and the way her wrist is placed against it. They have spoken about a misalignment in that area of the photo, that doesn't look quite right. A number of other things have cropped up during the day and yesterday evening as well around the tree behind the Princess of Wales. Should it look like that at this time of year? Is Prince Louis's hands, do they look a bit strange? Is there something wrong with the pattern on his jumper? So there has been a lot of scrutiny of the pictures and a lot of issues seem to be raised, but in terms of why the picture agencies issued that kill notice around the image and talked about manipulation, the focus there does seem to be on Princess Charlotte's wrist and her arm there.
Do they regularly, insofar as we can know this, Daniela, alter the images of the royal family before they're sent out to the public?
I wouldn't say it's a regular thing that they do. I think there is some basic photoshopping that is sometimes done on photos, if that's one way of putting it, in terms of it's touched up a little bit just to make it look a little bit nicer in terms of lighting and how everybody is placed. Is there massive manipulation of photos from the royal family? That is not something that I have had experience of. We receive quite a lot of images from the royal family at times, and particularly from the Prince and Princess of Wales. The Princess of Wales has often taken her own photos of her children, again part of them managing their privacy and not bringing in photographers, but mass manipulation, fakery around photos from those issued by the royal family is not something that has previously happened before.
And what's Kensington Palace saying?
Well, they're saying nothing at the moment, which is part of the problem, to try and establish exactly what has gone on here. They are not dealing with any questions, they're not answering anything about the issue of manipulation, so we're a little bit in the dark in terms of what is happening. And I think that the query here is this picture real in itself? Has there been a big fakery issue around it, or has it been photoshopped a little overzealously by the social media team at Kensington Palace who issued it yesterday morning?
Okay.
That isn't clear.
Daniela, thank you for that, and obviously if that changes, we do hear from Kensington Palace during the course of the programme, we will bring it to you.
24 minutes to 7, let's get a Monday morning political briefing with Henry Zeffman, our chief political correspondent. Morning, Henry. Extremism is in the news. The government's about to publish an official definition. Just set out, if you would, what the government is going to be announcing this week, and then we might turn to the Guardian story that's also at the top of their front page.
So this week, Amal, we're expecting the government to announce a new official definition of extremism. The current definition is about vocal or active opposition to British values. We think the new definition will go further. It will talk about people or groups being extremists if they seek to undermine liberal democracy as well as the rights or freedoms of others. Now, it's worth saying this isn't a new law. It's not a statutory definition. It's not a criminal definition, but it would affect who government, central government, but also local government and other public authorities deal with, and it would mean that any groups covered by the new definition of extremism could not be dealt with, funded, or anything else by public authorities.
It's tricky stuff, this. Tricky to define it politically, tricky to work out where the practical boundaries are, which might be one reason why the Guardian Splash, front page story this morning, is Tory ex-Home Secretary's warn against politicising extremism. And this is not just three former Home Secretaries in Priti Patel, Sajid Javid and Amber Rudd, but also, it seems, Henry, The Guardian says, leading counter-terror and extremism experts. What are they concerned about?
That's right. Large group of people like Neil Basu, who you were speaking to on the programme on Saturday, also the government's advisors on political violence and anti-Semitism. They seem to be concerned that the government's approach to extremism could fracture the cross-party consensus on dealing with extremism. They say that dealing with extremism is essential given the real threats from Islamist extremists, far-right extremists and others, these are their words, but it requires as broad a consensus as possible if we're to be successful in marginalising and defeating it. And they raise concerns about not maintaining that consensus, particularly in the run-up to a general election. That's one concern that I think the government is going to have to allay as it moves forward with these plans this week. Another separate concern that's been in the ether in recent weeks that's also worth bearing in mind, generally coming from the right of the Conservative Party, is that this new definition could end up being so broad that it would capture groups like anti-abortion campaigners or gender-critical campaigners. So those are the kinds of political tramlines to watch out for as Michael Gove moves forward with this later this week.
Henry Zeffman, our chief political correspondent, always going to talk to you. Thanks, Henry.
22 minutes to 7, a ship with aid for Gaza is due to leave Cyprus. Let's talk to Yolande Nell, our Middle East correspondent. But Yolande, as far as we know, hasn't left yet, is that right?
Yeah, this is a boat that's ready to sail from Cyprus as fighting is continuing in Gaza very intensely between Israeli troops and Hamas fighters as Ramadan really gets underway. This, of course, is being opened a sea route to try to counter aid restrictions on access, particularly by road. We've got the United Nations warning of looming famine, particularly in northern Gaza. They have no overland border crossings open, and then even in Rafah in the far south, that's where people are saying they can barely get any water. And of course, with the Palestinians at the moment now marking the dawn to dusk fast, the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, a lot of focus is on Gaza, events there, but also what happens here in Jerusalem.
Yeah, the fear being what?
So, I mean, the fear is really centred on whether tensions here could escalate, and a lot of focus is on the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is where tens of thousands of Palestinian Muslims would go, and it's the third holiest site in Islam. You'd expect those numbers to go every day during this month. It's also the most sacred place for Jews, who call it Temple Mount, and it's basically a long-standing flashpoint for trouble here. It was one of the starting points of the previous war back in 2021 between Israel and Hamas. A lot depends on what access Israel gives to Al-Aqsa, which is, of course, in occupied East Jerusalem. It's under Israeli control. We've had the far-right National Security Minister, wanting more restrictions there. Benjamin Netanyahu appeared to overrule that, saying numbers admitted would be similar to last year. But we did have reports several hundred people were denied access last night, young Palestinians in the main, as they went up for customary prayers after Ramadan was announced.
Thank you for that, and we will be bringing more during the course of the programme from Yolande if that ship does set sail, and we have more to say about the possibility of aid getting into Gaza.
19 minutes to 7. It's been a weekend of extreme violence and further turmoil in Haiti. Government buildings in Port-au-Prince have been targeted by the gangs, and the authorities have lost control of much of the capital city. As Haiti continues to spiral into chaos, the US military carried out an operation to airlift all non-essential staff from its embassy there. Leaders of the Caribbean regional bloc, CARICOM, are meeting in Jamaica today to discuss the crisis. Our Central America and Caribbean correspondent Will Grant reports.
Haiti is fast descending into anarchy. Over the past few nights, the violence in the capital, Port-au-Prince, has ramped up once again. Heavily armed groups attacked the National Palace and set part of the Interior Ministry on fire with Molotov cocktails. It comes after a sustained attack on the international airport, which remains closed to all flights, including one carrying the Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. He recently attempted to fly back to Haiti, but his plane was refused permission to land, and was also turned away from the neighbouring Dominican Republic. He's now stuck in Puerto Rico, unable to return to the nation he ostensibly leads. With no prime minister and the government in disarray, the gang's grip of the capital is near absolute. They control over 80% of Port-au-Prince, and the country's most notorious gang leader, Jimmy Cherezier, nicknamed Barbecue, told Prime Minister Henry to resign in chilling language. If Ariel Henry doesn't step down and the international community continues to support him, he told the gathered media, they will lead us directly to a civil war which will end in genocide. Meanwhile, the police, outnumbered and demoralised, are struggling to keep looters at bay. The Salomon police station was attacked and burnt out, charred vehicles lying outside the still smouldering building. In the State University of Haiti Hospital, commonly known as the General Hospital in downtown Port-au-Prince, the situation is dire. There is no sign of any medical staff at all. In one bed, covered by a sheet and swarming with flies, a dead body lies next to patients waiting in vain for treatment. No one has come to remove the deceased, and the body is rapidly decomposing in the Caribbean heat. There are no doctors. They all fled last week, said Philippe, a patient who didn't want to give his real name. We can't go outside. We hear the explosions and gunfire, so we must have courage and stay here. We can't go anywhere. Nevertheless, even in the total collapse of law and order, people are still venturing out to make a living amid the chaos. These market sellers see no other option than to leave their homes even while gunmen roam the streets.
I have 3 kids. I'm their mother and their father, so I'm obliged to take to the streets. Yesterday, gunmen came here and stole all our money. A lot of vendors lost all of their money. But there's no way to stay at home when you have 3 mouths to feed. What can you do?
I don't feel good. My children don't either. The anxiety is killing me when I'm in the street. I keep thinking, what if I get shot dead? Who will take care of my children then? I have no family to support me.
An already chaotic and deeply dangerous situation in Port-au-Prince was worsened by the escape of around 4,000 inmates after the gangs attacked the city's main prison. In the aftermath, cell doors are wide open, the facility is virtually abandoned, and there are bloodstains on the ground after gunmen easily overpowered the guards. The Prime Minister unable to return, violent gangs in charge, and dead bodies waiting to be picked up off the streets. All in all, this adds up to a picture of a nation about as close to a failed state as it's possible to be.
And that was Will Grant reporting on the situation in Haiti. Brings us to 7:15. Look at the papers, and well, it's a tale of 2 interpretations of a picture, I suppose. The first in the first editions, and the second very much in the second editions, as it were, and indeed online. For those that don't have second editions in the modern era, so the Sun has a picture of Princess Kate, as they put it, beaming with her children in the first official photo since abdominal surgery.
The royal family. But, as Justin says, if they turn to the Telegraph, their edition has got a different front page splash. Photo from Palace was doctored, say agencies. Princess of Wales' Mothering Sunday image of the family recalled over editing fears. It's obviously one of those classic stories that broke pretty late. Some newspapers don't run later editions. It used to be that newspapers had 5 editions a night. Some of them are down to 2 or even 1. And one other paper that has got it is the Mail, whose front page strap photo says, this joyous Mother's Day snap was meant to be the reassurance we all needed, but has it backfired? And it's got a piece from Rebecca English, their royal editor, and columnist Sarah Vine. So tricky timing for the papers, and we're going to explore that over the course of this programme.
Quite an interesting addition to it in the Guardian's online story. So the Guardian initially, like all the other papers, just prints the photo on an inside page, but it then goes into detail about why the Associated Press and other big news agencies have withdrawn it from feeding it on to the outlets that they serve. So it's an interesting one. The Associated Press, appears, according to the Guardian story, to allow cropping, toning and colour adjustment that are acceptable when necessary for clear and accurate reproduction. But they should maintain the authentic nature of the photo, and they go through a whole lot of other things that are not allowed, including whatever seems to have happened to this one.
Our main headline at 13 minutes to 7 is that the world's 4 biggest photo agencies, as we say, have all withdrawn this new image of the Princess of Wales from circulation over concerns that it has been manipulated. Let's talk about Parkinson's, because a new project called Tremors versus Tremors uses the power of music to raise awareness of the individual nature of Parkinson's. At its core, the project is a music album created from individual tremors. The tremors of 5 people with Parkinson's were recorded and used to create unique music tracks, each one tailored to that individual's own personal narrative. Tremors are often, of course, though not always, a signature of Parkinson's. We're going to talk to Dr. Chris Lambert in a moment. Just before we do, and he's the brains behind this remarkable project, just before we do, here's what it sounds like.
I liked it. It was very me. I feel a physical change in my symptoms when I have an emotional reaction to things, and you know, there's nothing more emotional than a music that's based on me.
I can also hear the tremor in the background in the intro, and it's obviously relaxing, and it drags me into it. I can feel it.
It made me think about how strong I am, really, and I think I'm learning not to be self-conscious about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, I think we can all agree that sounds absolutely fantastic. Dr. Chris Lambert is the brains behind it, consultant neurologist and principal investigator at UCL Queen Square Institute of Neurology. He's joined us in the studio. Dr. Lambert, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I can see you're emotional just listening back to that. I mean, what have we just heard? What is going on? What have you just done?
I mean, it's the culmination of many months of work. We approached 5 individuals. Combined with recordings of their tremor to create the tracks that you've just heard.
How did you turn their personal stories into that music?
I mean, really, it is a collaboration between a large group of individuals. We, at UCL and at the Functional Imaging Laboratory at UCL, recorded the tremors using accelerometers, and then we had a creative team with De House in Berlin who transformed those tremors into the musical tracks that you hear there.
And what did they make of the music that they, as it were, produced? Did it help them with their, you know, the issue of dealing with having Parkinson's?
I mean, I think our volunteers' responses were all quite unique. They all took very, very different things away from it, and nobody had heard the tracks up until the point they were finally created, including myself.
One of the reasons you did this, I imagine, is to find another way. It's partly why you're here, is to help highlight the condition. We have made great strides on Parkinson's in recent years, including programs like this, helping people to understand it's quite a complex condition. You can't always spot the symptoms.
Well, that's exactly right. So Parkinson's itself is an extremely variable condition. How it affects one person is not how it affects another. And many of the symptoms are indeed hidden from view, which is part of the point of doing this project, was really to highlight that and bring attention to the hidden face of Parkinson's.
Got no obvious plan to replicate this process, but do you think that what you were trying to do here is show that each Parkinson's case is genuinely unique? We think of tremors as being this thing, Some people call it the shakes, which I think is not a bit the language people use these days, but that's something we people think of as common to Parkinson's. Actually, everyone who's going through Parkinson's has a very unique and individual experience.
Well, that's exactly right, and our approach to treatment has to also be quite unique and tailored to the individual. And it's not all about medications. We have to think about the wider repertoire of therapies, treatments and tools we have available to us to help individuals manage their day-to-day symptoms.
You say it's not all about medication, but we've often covered the fact that on this programme, we cover the fact that there are enormous strides being made now in terms of particularly drug treatment for dealing with things like tremors, but also early interventions. Where are we? What's the most exciting aspect of current research into Parkinson's treatment?
I mean, it's a really exciting time where, as you say, that we're making huge gains forwards, and there are lots of very exciting both treatments and therapies that are currently being tested. I think it will only take one good treatment in order to change the game entirely, so we're all sort of, it's an exciting time to be in the research field.
What an exciting time, and very good of you to come in. Dr. Chris Lambert from the UCL Queen Square Institute of Neurology, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The time, 8 minutes to 7. Labour have plans for the teaching of the arts. Big plans, which Keir Starmer himself is going to publicise later today with a visit to a school. He'll be accompanied by Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Education Secretary, and she's on the line. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
And what are these plans?
So what we want to make sure is that alongside high and rising standards in our schools, we want to ensure that all young people get access to creative and vocational subjects, so music, sport, art, drama. It's sadly the case that that has been squeezed out in recent years. It denies young people the opportunities that they deserve in life, and frankly it's what parents tell me right across the country that they want to see, both in terms of